The light in the upstairs bathroom was on. That was the first sign something was off. It was 3:17 a.m. I know because I checked my phone after the garage door woke me up, the one she forgot I had synced to my notifications. She thought putting it on silent mode meant I'd never know when she slipped out or came back. She was wrong. I didn't get out of bed right away. I waited. Listened. Our hallway has this distinct creak, a kind of whispery groan, and tonight it spoke twice. Once when she tiptoed past the bedroom. Again when she stopped in front of the mirror to look at herself. The sync ran for exactly 4 seconds. Long enough to splash her face. Not long enough to wash off anything meaningful. I stayed under the blanket, pretending to sleep, heart pounding so loud I thought she'd hear it. I don't know why I didn't confront her. Maybe because deep down, I already knew. And knowing silently was easier than hearing it aloud. 10 minutes later, the mattress dipped on her side. She turned her back to me like she always did now. I stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. By 7:05 a.m., I was standing in that same bathroom. Same mirror. Same sink. There were 2 used tissues in the trash, smudged with lipstick that wasn't the shade she wore when she left earlier that night. A soft red, not her usual nude beige. And on the edge of the sink, a hair tie. Black. Not hers. She's blonde. She wears pink or pastel blue. I held that black band between my fingers like it was radioactive. I should have shouted. Demanded answers. I should have flipped the whole house upside down. But all I did was drop it back in the sink and whisper, okay. Because this wasn't the first sign. Just the one that finally broke me. By noon, she was in the kitchen, wearing my old sweatshirt like it still meant something, sipping coffee like she hadn't blown a hole through our home. And that's when she said it. No warning. No apology. No shame. I want to live for myself without you. She said it like she was asking for oat milk in her latte. Like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. And I replied calmly. Go ahead. But not in my house. She blinked, just once. Like I'd finally surprised her for the first time in years. What happened next? When she came back that night thinking I'd cave. When I showed her the envelope on the kitchen counter. When she opened it and saw what was inside. That's when the story really began. She came home that night like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't shattered my dignity 12 hours earlier with a 9-word sentence that still rang in my ears. I want to live for myself without you. I had told her to go. Told her this wasn't her house anymore. But she must have thought I was bluffing. Or maybe she was just testing how much of myself I was willing to lose before I finally vanished completely. She walked in through the front door, carrying a shopping bag like it was just another Tuesday. The smell of vanilla and some artificial floral scent followed her in like smoke after a fire. She didn't make eye contact. Didn't speak. She just floated through the living room, tossed her bag on the couch, and opened the fridge like she still owned the air in the room. But I was ready this time. The envelope was already sitting on the kitchen counter. Thick, cream-colored, with her name written in my most polite penmanship. She saw it when she reached for the oat milk. Paused. Looked at me, confused, like she didn't recognize the man standing 10 feet away. What's this? She asked, touching the edge of the flap. I didn't speak. Not at first. I wanted the silence to rot her composure. Wanted her to feel the weight of every second I'd spent questioning my sanity these past few months. She opened it. Inside was a single printed document and a small folded receipt stapled to the back. She scanned the top line and immediately went pale. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. I finally spoke. That's the quitclaim deed, I said. You remember, when we refinanced the house 3 years ago, and I asked if you wanted to co-sign. You said you didn't want the stress of paperwork. So I signed it myself. She blinked. Twice. Gideon. Your name was never on the title. I continued, my voice as steady as I could manage. You've been living in a house you don't own. Using a car I bought. Maxing out a credit card I never asked you to use. And building a second life I never agreed to be part of. She looked like she wanted to interrupt. I didn't let her. You said you wanted to live for yourself. You can. Just not here. She tried to laugh, a dry, broken sound that didn't make it past her throat. You're seriously kicking me out? I tilted my head slightly, like I was studying a patient who just realized they'd been misdiagnosed for years. No, Mallory. You already left. I'm just following through. She set the envelope down like it burned her fingers. Then she did what manipulators always do when control slips from their hands. She switched tactics. Her eyes got soft. She stepped forward, voice trembling. I didn't mean it like that. she whispered. I've been confused. Work's been stressful. I've been feeling alone. Don't, I said. Don't do that thing where you break me and then cry because I'm bleeding. And here's the thing. I expected a fight, an explosion, a tearful confession, a screaming match. What I didn't expect was a smile, a slow, creeping grin like a secret blooming across her face. You really think this is over? She said, stepping back. You think a piece of paper scares me? You think I don't have things you want to keep hidden? My stomach dropped. Because the way she said it, it wasn't a bluff. She was holding something she thought would give her leverage. And in that moment, I realized I had never really known the woman I married. I had built a life with a stranger. And now, she was about to prove just how dangerous that stranger could be. She didn't take the envelope with her when she left that night. She left it sitting on the counter like it didn't matter. Like her signature on that deed hadn't just dissolved the last piece of leverage she thought she had. She stormed out after her grin faded, muttering something under her breath about how I'd regret playing tough. I didn't ask where she went. I just locked the door behind her for the first time in 3 years and sat on the couch with the lights off for an hour, staring into nothing, listening to the quiet like it owed me an apology. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. Not out of peace. I hadn't slept much. My mind was turning itself inside out, replaying that smirk she gave me before she left. It wasn't a smirk of defeat. It was strategy. It was preparation. She wasn't backing off. She was regrouping. I could feel it in my bones. I didn't want to admit it, but she had me rattled. When you spend years loving someone, you memorize them. Their voice, their habits, the way they twist their hair when they lie. And Mallory, she was too calm when I pushed back. That kind of calm only comes from someone holding a card behind their back, something you didn't see coming. So I searched. Not her phone. I knew better. She had a thumbprint lock and a second app for private chats disguised as a calculator. I wasn't tech dumb. I was just love dumb. But her laptop? That was shared. And even though she'd started using her work MacBook more lately, her old laptop was still sitting in the spare room on the desk next to her dusty ring light and half-empty makeup bags. I opened it. No password. Classic Mallory. She thought hiding in plain sight was smarter than locking it up. The desktop was chaos. Screenshots, invoices, half-finished PDFs labeled moodboard_final_v2. But then I saw it. A folder named recipes. Now, here's the thing. Mallory never cooked. Ever. I handled all our meals. She could barely boil an egg without Googling the water temperature. So I clicked. Inside were 46 screenshots, none of them food. They were messages, DMs, conversations with someone named AJ. The first one was dated 5 months ago. AJ. He doesn't suspect a thing? Mallory, he's a puppy. Just looks at me with those sad eyes and says thank you when I lie to him. AJ. You said you'd leave him by March. Mallory, and I will. But I want to make sure I get the house first. I swear my chest caved in when I read that. I kept scrolling. More messages. More manipulation. She wasn't just cheating. She was planning an extraction. A clean exit with assets in hand and minimal damage to herself. There were even jokes. One where she said she was thinking of accidentally leaving the gas stove on and blaming me for the carbon monoxide alarm. She was laughing about turning me into a walking alibi. But the worst part? She recorded me. That same night, buried under the files, was a short audio clip named G_anger1. M4A. I almost didn't click. But I did. It was me. 2 months ago. During an argument I barely even remembered. I was frustrated, exhausted, mid-panic. She was calm, goading me on. You're crazy, she whispered. Mallory, I'm trying here. I'm giving you everything I have. You're paranoid, Gideon. No one else would ever put up with you. The clip ended with me raising my voice. Not yelling. Just broken. It was a man's last gasp of hope, trying to keep a crumbling marriage from turning to ash. But to anyone else? Cropped out of context? It sounded unhinged. I sat there, shaking, realizing that she hadn't just emotionally abandoned me. She had been prepping an exit strategy that painted me as unstable, as possessive, as dangerous. And now? Now she was out there, somewhere, with AJ, plotting the next move, waiting for me to react. But I wouldn't. Not yet. You can't fight a snake by stomping on the grass. You let it coil. You watch it slither. And when it least expects it, you strike with the truth. But I needed more. More than messages. more than an audio clip. So I called in a favor, someone who owed me from years back. Someone with a background in data recovery and a moral compass just slightly grayer than the law allows. And what he found next? What was still hidden deep on her hard drive, even after she deleted everything. That changed the story forever. It took him less than 24 hours. My guy, let's call him Deacon, was the type of person who didn't ask questions. He just asked for power, coffee, and silence. He sat in my living room hunched over Mallory's laptop like a surgeon operating on a corpse, muttering to himself about data sectors and logical partitions while I paced the floor with a knot in my stomach that felt like it was growing teeth. "You're lucky she's lazy," he said after a few hours. "Most people just drag things to the trash. They don't realize the system keeps fragments tucked away in the cache." I nodded like I understood, but I didn't. Not really. All I knew was that Mallory had left digital footprints in places she thought were invisible. And Deacon? He knew how to make them bleed. He found a folder. Not the recipes. One. This was different. Hidden under a renamed system cache folder, mislabeled as system_recovery_April. The kind of thing even an IT guy might overlook unless they were looking for it. Inside. Photos. Lots of them. Over 200 JPEGs with numerical names. All stripped of context. No dates, no tags, just raw images. But a few still had EXIF data embedded. That's where things got real. One of the first pictures showed her in a hotel robe, posing in front of a floor-length mirror. She was smiling, holding a glass of wine. On the nightstand behind her, I could make out a takeout bag from a sushi place in Charleston. The same place she told me she had to cancel her weekend trip to because her mom had a fall. I remembered that night. I had sent flowers to her mother. I had spent hours calling urgent care clinics asking about appointments under her last name. All lies. The photo's timestamp said 9:24 p.m., the exact time I was sitting alone in our living room, watching reruns and texting her updates like a fool. And then came that photo. At first glance, it looked innocent. Two people in bed, sheets covering most of their bodies. A selfie, taken in dim light, with soft yellow glow from the bedside lamp. She was half turned toward the camera, smiling that closed-lip smile she used when she thought she was being attractive. Her hand was on someone's chest. That someone was Caleb. I hadn't seen him since college. Frat boy. Loud. Arrogant. The kind of guy who always borrowed money and never paid it back. He had once bragged at a party about sleeping with his best friend's girlfriend just to see if he could. He'd been a parasite back then, and apparently not much had changed. They were in bed. Together. And from the angle of the shot, it wasn't just a moment. It was routine. You don't take a casual selfie like that unless it's normal. Comfortable. Repeated. My throat dried up. My chest went cold. Caleb. Of all people. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I hadn't spoken to him in over a decade. And yet here he was, in my wife's bed. Or maybe in a hotel room. Or maybe in our bed. I didn't even know anymore. Every wall in our house suddenly felt like a stranger's. And then, another image. This one made my knees give out. It was a shot of a notepad, just one line written in her handwriting, circled twice in red ink. Let him break first. That was it. For words. Let him break first. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It wasn't even emotional manipulation. It was a strategy. I wasn't a husband in her eyes. I was a task. A project. A weak point in the structure that she was slowly, deliberately chiseling away at until it crumbled on its own. And I almost had. She had baited me, lied to me, filmed me, made me think I was losing control, losing her, when in reality, I was losing myself. I stared at that screen for what felt like an hour. "Can I copy these?" I asked Deacon, finally. He looked at me, eyes heavy with something between pity and fear. "Yeah," he said. "But be careful, man. Whatever game she's playing, she's not playing it alone." And that's when it clicked. AJ wasn't Caleb's nickname. AJ wasn't one person. It was a group chat, a network. She wasn't just unfaithful. She was being coached. By whom? For how long? Why? I didn't have those answers yet, but I knew where I'd start looking. Because one of the messages buried deep in her laptop's autofill log was an address. And what I found when I drove there the next day, that deserves a chapter of its own. The address was scribbled on a digital sticky note embedded in her desktop dashboard, tucked away behind open Chrome tabs and cluttered work PDFs. It would have been easy to miss. I only found it because I was scanning through her clipboard history. The note had no label, no context, just an address and a time. 8:21, Cedar Lane, 6:30 p.m. No date, no explanation. I almost didn't go. I sat in the driver's seat for over 20 minutes, just staring at the steering wheel, thinking, what if it's just a work thing? What if I'm imagining this again? What if I show up, and it's nothing, and I become exactly the version of me she's been painting? Unstable, paranoid, desperate? But then I remembered the photo. Caleb in bed. Mallory's handwriting. Let him break first. And suddenly, I didn't care if I was being dramatic. So I went. Cedar Lane was one of those quiet, identical neighborhoods. New development, fake brick, spotless driveways. Every house had the same gray shutters and trimmed hedges. It was the kind of place where people wore athleisure to pick up Amazon packages and pretended nothing ugly ever happened behind closed doors. 8:21 had the porch light on. One of those motion-triggered ones that clicked on the moment I stepped onto the walkway. I froze for a second, half hoping someone would open the door and say I had the wrong place. But nothing happened. I walked around the side. The blinds in the living room window were drawn, but slightly crooked, just enough to peek through if you angled right. And what I saw? Mallory, sitting at the table, laughing. She was laughing in a way I hadn't seen in years, head tilted back, eyes glowing, shoulders relaxed. She looked free. Opposite her sat not Caleb, not some mysterious AJ, but a woman, mid-40s, sharp jawline, black blazer over a silk blouse. Cold, professional, the kind of person who always knows more than you. She had a tablet in her hands and was showing Mallory something on the screen. I saw Mallory nod. Then she signed something. A paper. 2 copies. What the hell was this? I crept closer, feeling like a thief outside my own reality. I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo through the gap in the blinds. And as I did, the woman suddenly looked up, directly toward the window. Straight at me. I ducked. Silence. No footsteps. No alarms. No one came outside. I backed away and walked as calmly as I could back to my car, heart pounding like a jackhammer in my throat. I didn't drive off right away. I sat in the car with my headlights off, watching. 20 minutes later, Mallory stepped out with that woman beside her. They hugged. Not friendly. Not familial. Strategic. The way 2 business people seal a deal. The woman handed her a folder before leaving in a black Lexus with no plates on the front bumper. I recognized the brand. Private firm vehicle. Probably registered under a shell company. I used to code for people like that. Mallory drove off 10 minutes later. Alone. Once the coast was clear, I got out again. My hands were shaking, my pulse loud in my ears. I knew I was crossing a line, but I didn't care anymore. I needed something. Anything. Proof that this wasn't just emotional betrayal, that it was bigger, colder, planned. The house was locked, but the side gate wasn't. I slipped around the back, hoping to God no one had security cams. There was a sliding door cracked open just an inch, probably forgotten in the rush. I stepped inside. It was a staging house. Empty furniture. No photos on the walls. No signs of real life. But on the kitchen counter sat a black leather folder. I opened it. Inside was a single notebook. Spiral-bound. Lined pages. Her handwriting. A journal. Most of the entries were short, scribbled nonsense. Lists of things to do, cryptic affirmations, little notes to herself like, don't forget tone. Make it emotional, not angry. But 3 pages in, I found a full paragraph written in blue ink, circled 3 times. He still trusts me. I know it. He thinks he's getting stronger, but I can feel the way he breathes when I say certain things. I just have to time it right. If I pull too fast, he'll get suspicious. If I stay too long, I'll slip. But if I can stretch this another month, I'll have everything I need to prove instability. Then it's clean, legal, profitable, and best of all, believable. I dropped the notebook. I had been living in a psychological experiment, a test to see how much of myself could be chipped away before I collapsed. She was writing about my breathing, measuring my reactions like a lab rat, profiling me, framing me. I wasn't just being replaced. I was being documented for destruction. And the woman in the blazer? She wasn't a lawyer. She wasn't a friend. She was likely a consultant, someone hired to help orchestrate this entire narrative. Emotional manipulation with legal polish. A clean, presentable collapse. All to make Mallory look like the victim. I took the journal. I don't care if it was illegal. If they want to call it trespassing, let them. Because what came next What I found tucked inside the back cover, folded into a business card for someone named R. Oates, was the key that unlocked the full scope of the scheme. And trust me, this goes way deeper than adultery. I sat in my car gripping the journal like it was some kind of radioactive artifact. I hadn't even read the whole thing yet. I was too focused on the business card I found tucked into the back cover. Thick, expensive stock, embossed with clean serif letters. R. Oates, clinical consultant. No address. No phone number. Just an email, rotes_wellpath@protonmail.com. That domain said everything. Private. Untraceable. Off the grid. I stared at that card for hours that night. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mallory's handwriting. I just have to time it right. I kept hearing that woman's voice in my head, even though I never actually heard her speak. I imagined how she might sound. Calculated, composed, probably calling me unstable behind closed doors while teaching my wife how to weaponize affection. The next morning, I ran a background check. There were no public records for R. Oates connected to any licensed therapist in the state. But I found a thread, an old forum post from 4 years ago, where someone mentioned that name in the context of domestic risk documentation consulting. I didn't even know that was a thing. But apparently, it is. Let me explain. There are private consultants who specialize in creating narrative frameworks for divorces involving high-value assets. They help their clients appear emotionally vulnerable, document conflicts, and gather curated evidence in a way that sways courts, especially in situations involving mental health. Their job isn't to lie. It's to curate the truth selectively. And R. Oates? He was one of them. According to the forum post, he'd helped a woman in Nevada document a 6-month emotional instability arc to gain full custody and sell her husband's property out from under him without contest. The husband ended up in a psychiatric hold after his breakdown. The post ended with the line, "By the time he realized what she'd built, it was already over." I felt sick. I ran into the bathroom and vomited, because I suddenly understood everything. The last 8 months hadn't just been a breakdown of a marriage. They were steps in a psychological campaign. Mallory hadn't been drifting emotionally. She'd been gathering scenes, logging moments, pushing buttons she knew would trigger reactions, all while prepping a legal narrative of a man deteriorating. I was the story, and she was writing it for court. Think about it. The audio recording where I snapped during an argument, perfectly clipped. The receipt she left accidentally from that wellness center. The friend she told I had become obsessed with controlling her. The subtle comments she made during dinner with my cousin about how I'd been forgetting things lately. None of it was random. It was scaffolding. And here's the part that really gutted me. I had helped her build it. Because I was tired. I was irritable. I had been questioning myself, doubting my sanity, begging her to talk to me while she stared past me like I was a wall. I had fallen apart in real time, and she had been documenting it like it was a nature documentary. I sat in my garage for 2 hours just staring at the shelves where I used to keep our holiday decorations. I couldn't cry anymore. I was past that. My grief had ossified into something sharper. And in that silence, I remembered something Deacon told me back when we were in college, working late on a private security contract for a shady pharmaceutical client. He said, "People don't plan betrayals overnight. They architect them, like blueprints. And the scariest ones? They don't just lie. They tell the truth in the wrong sequence." That's what Mallory was doing. She was telling just enough of the truth to bury me with it. I opened the journal again and flipped to the end. Last page. The handwriting was messy, rushed. It was clearly written just days ago. He's starting to get suspicious. Might be time to trigger a reaction. If he snaps, Oates said we move to phase 2. Just need a documented escalation. No marks. Nothing physical. Just something loud. Emotional. If it looks organic, we win. If it looks organic, we win. Those 6 words hit me harder than anything else in the book. Because I could already feel it happening. The walls closing in. My friends had stopped calling. Her family wouldn't answer my messages. She had already begun laying the groundwork for isolation, and I was playing right into it. But here's the thing. She underestimated something. I may be emotional. I may be exhausted. But I'm not stupid. I've worked in systems security for 16 years. I've reverse-engineered ransomware. I've built encryption tunnels that the government couldn't crack. And now? Now I was going to take that same skill set and use it to expose everything. But first, I needed to force her to make a mistake. So I did something I knew she wouldn't expect. I texted her, "I forgive you." And then I waited. I sent the message at 6:11 a.m., knowing she'd be just waking up. Not enough time to prep a performance, not enough caffeine in her system to mask the surprise. All I wrote was, "I forgive you. Let's talk soon." No punctuation, no emojis, no anger, just ambiguity. And ambiguity, I knew, was poison to people like her. For the first 3 hours, there was nothing. No reply, no call. I imagined her pacing in whatever Airbnb or friend's place she was nesting in, probably rereading the message a dozen times, wondering if it was bait, wondering what I knew. Then, at exactly 9:39 a.m., she replied, "I'm glad you're healing. Let's take it slow." I laughed out loud. Healing? I'd just uncovered proof that she'd been coordinating a character assassination plot with a private consultant, storing evidence to destroy me in court, and grooming people in our social circle to believe I was cracking. And she wanted to take it slow? It was working. She believed it. And that meant I had time. I had already installed a microphone in the house. Small, discreet, hidden in the base of the lamp in the corner of the living room. I'd done it 2 nights ago, just in case she came back for something without warning. And right on cue, that afternoon, she did. I was out, or at least she thought I was. She had a key, of course. Still hadn't returned it. I watched her on the Ring camera as she walked in, phone pressed to her ear, large tote bag slung over her shoulder. She moved through the house like she still owned it. That made me angrier than anything else. How casual she was in my space. But it wasn't the intrusion that got me. It was the conversation. She stood near the lamp, right in the microphone's range, and started speaking, not on a call, but on speakerphone. Rookie mistake. The other voice was male. Calm. Confident. Not Caleb. This one was older. Smoother. "He reached out this morning," she said, her tone almost smug. "What did he say?" "That he forgives me. Wants to talk." "Good," the man said. "Then we're close. Keep the tone warm. Soft. Stay in the role. If he signs anything, even a text admitting to emotional strain, that strengthens us." Strengthens us. She was still in it. Deep. The man continued. "Remind him of his childhood. Trigger guilt. Avoid anger. Lean into sentimentality. If he breaks again, I want it documented." I felt my fingers curl into fists. She was nodding along, like a student with her professor. Not once did she question it. Not once did she ask, "Is this going too far?" To her, I was no longer her husband. I was a storyline. A set of data points she was collecting like a scavenger hunt. But then something strange happened. Right before she left, the man on the phone said something different. "You'll get what we agreed on. But if he flips this, if he comes forward with anything, walk away. Go dark. You know the protocols." Protocols? What was this, a script? An operation? I thought this was just a calculated divorce, a cold, manipulative exit strategy. But now it sounded like something bigger. Something with steps. Contingencies. Risk management. She didn't argue. She just said, "Understood." Then she hung up, left through the back door, and was gone again. I played that recording back 6 times. I couldn't recognize the voice on the other end. But that word, protocols, it haunted me. It sounded clinical, military adjacent, private sector precise. And then, right as I was saving the file to an encrypted flash drive, the doorbell rang. No one was there. Just a small brown box on the porch. No return label. No postage stamp. Just my name in thick, block letters. I brought it inside slowly, every instinct in me screaming that I shouldn't open it. But I did. Inside was a cheap burner phone. Already charged. No note. No context. Just a lock screen with a single number saved as call only if necessary. And beneath it, scribbled on a post-it note. "Some people don't just leave. They disappear others before they do." I stared at it for a long time. The handwriting wasn't Mallory's. It was Messier. Sharper. Male. My palms were sweating. I didn't know what the hell was happening anymore. This wasn't just about her cheating. This wasn't even about divorce. It felt like I'd stepped into someone else's movie, one where I didn't even know what genre we were in. The flash drive with the audio went into my safe. The burner went into my nightstand drawer. And me? I sat in the dark until morning, staring at the blinking light on the phone, wondering how deep this rabbit hole really went, and whether Mallory was in control anymore, or just a pawn. But I had one more move to make before I called that number. One final thread I had to pull. Because if what I suspected next was true, it meant this all began long before I ever met her. It started with a name on the back of an old college photo. I found it in a forgotten cardboard box wedged between insulation rolls in the garage. The photo wasn't even hers, it was mine. An old group shot from freshman orientation at Hastings Tech, me, 2 roommates, and about 20 strangers. I hadn't looked at it in over a decade. But there, standing near the back, half hidden behind someone's shoulder, was Mallory. Only, she wasn't Mallory Bennett. She was Mallory Keene, a name I'd never heard her mention once in our 12 years together. I flipped the photo over. A list of names. One stood out. R. Oates Psychology Club. It hit me like a freight train. They hadn't met recently. They hadn't hired him after things fell apart. They had known each other before I ever knew her. This was never just a failing marriage. This was something rehearsed. Perfected. A pattern. I spent the next week diving into every piece of data I could find. Forum threads, sealed court records, archived student group newsletters, anonymous testimonies. It turned out, 2 men from her past, former boyfriends, had also experienced psychological episodes before quietly disappearing from their professional and social lives. One moved to Colorado and hasn't been online since 2016. The other was hospitalized after a reported mental health crisis he never publicly explained. I even found a grainy Reddit post under an abandoned account that read, "If you ever meet someone named Mallory Keene, run. She'll break you and make you thank her for it." I didn't sleep after that, but I didn't panic either. I planned, and then I called the number on the burner phone. A man answered. No name, just a single sentence. "You waited longer than I expected." We talked for over an hour. He was a former consultant. Said he had once worked in containment strategy for civil dissolution. Basically, he taught people how to build divorces like war campaigns. Until he realized people like Mallory, people with charm and no conscience, were using the system to rewrite reality and erase their targets. He helped me build a digital report, encrypted, time-stamped, with cross-referenced evidence from emails, messages, geotagged photos, voice recordings, and medical gaslighting strategies. He helped me draft a counter-narrative, not to destroy Mallory, but to protect myself. And then he gave me one final gift. He found her, 2 states away, registered under a new LLC. Different last name again. Still smiling in stock images for a bogus startup wellness company promising to help women take control of their stories. Classic. I could have exposed her. I could have destroyed her reputation. I had everything I needed. But I didn't. I sent her a letter. Just 1 page. No threats. No accusations. It simply read, "I know. I have proof. And if you ever try this again, to me or anyone else, the story won't be yours to tell anymore." That was 2 months ago. Since then, I've moved. New town. New job. Smaller apartment. Less square footage, but more peace than I've known in years. I started going to therapy. Real therapy. Not the kind that gets used against you. I hike now. I cook for myself again. I wake up and don't feel sick anymore. And I've made a quiet promise to myself. Never again will I apologize for surviving someone else's script. The last time I saw her was on a park bench, 3 weeks ago, purely by coincidence. She didn't see me. She was sitting alone, staring at her phone, brows furrowed, like even after all her games, peace still evaded her. I watched her for a minute, and then I walked away. Not out of fear, out of freedom.